Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Digital Friday event, our last Digital Friday event of the spring semester. My name is Sean. I am one of the co-directors of HASTAC Scholars. And while we're waiting on folks to join in the Zoom, I was hoping that people could maybe introduce themselves in the chat. If you're comfortable to please introduce yourself in the chat with a few words about yourself, with your name, your pronouns, where you're zooming in from today, and maybe a quick sentence or two about um, what your research project is or what your area of interest is. It would be really great to hear that from everybody. So I could maybe model that. My name is Sean Lin. I use he, him pronouns. I am zooming in from New York, where it's a little rainy today. And I'm a PhD student in the Earth and Environmental Science program at the CUNY Grad Center. I'm studying geography, and I'm doing a research project on, I'm using pho as a way to think through refugee migrations and foodways between Southeast Asia and the United States. So I'm here today in the capacity of being one of the co-directors of HASTAC Scholars. HASTAC, if you are new to our space, welcome. HASTAC stands for Humanities, Arts, Science, Technology, Alliance, and Collaboratory. We're an interdisciplinary community of humanists, artists, social scientists, and technologists changing the way we teach and learn. Our 18,000 plus members from over 400 affiliate organizations share ideas, news, tools, research, insights, pedagogy, methods, and projects, including digital humanities and other born digital scholarship, and collaborate on various HASTAC initiatives. One of our HASTAC initiatives is Digital Fridays. This is a space that is entirely organized and led by our scholars. We have a cohort of about 70 HASTAC scholars this year who have been leading presentations. Today we have two of our scholars who will be presenting with us. Before I introduce our scholars, though, I wanted to let folks know that this session is being recorded. So if that is something that you are not comfortable with, I'd like to invite you to turn your cameras off. But otherwise, I'd like to invite you to keep your cameras on so that we can try to connect with each other as best as we can in these disconnected times. We have two presenters today, so each presenter is going to have about 15 to 20 minutes to present. If you have any questions for the presenters, I'll invite you to ask your questions in the chat, and we're going to hold the Q&A and discussion until both folks have had a chance to present. So yeah, feel free to drop questions and comments in the chat at any point during the presentation, but we're going to have a discussion at the end of the two presentations. All right, our first presenter today is Erin Lane. Erin is a PhD candidate in Spanish literature and culture at Arizona State University. She has taught both high school and undergraduate courses in Spanish literature and culture, and recently finished a digital humanities certificate at Arizona State University. Her research interests are contemporary peninsular narrative, women and gender studies, trauma studies, second language pedagogy, and digital humanities. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Sean, for that introduction. So I just put the link for the Google Slides presentation that I created for my presentation today in the chat. So if you're interested in kind of following along, and there's some links in there as well. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So my talk today is going to be centered on digital humanities tools and applications that can be used in, specifically my field is teaching literature and culture, Spanish literature and culture, but I know that these have applications in lots of other areas as well. So hopefully you'll see a tool today or a method that you might find to be useful if you're in the classroom. So I'm framing this around Bloom's revised taxonomy, which is this pyramid here. And these are kind of the levels of understanding when you're learning. This is kind of the basis, remembering, kind of regurgitating information, memorizing. And essentially what we want to do as instructors is to get our students up to these levels where they're analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And digital humanities tools do that really well. They allow them to create visualizations, create projects, maps, timelines, things like that, where they're able to evaluate and analyze. So that's what it's kind of based on. And these are really briefly, I'm going to talk about these different tools, different mapping tools, both mind mapping and geographical. Timelines, words clouds, using word trees or the program AntConc, and then some computational analysis. And I will give some examples of how you can do named entity recognition and topic modeling without having to have coding experience, which a lot of people don't have. So all the links to everything that I'm going to mention are here on this Symbaloo page. This is just a screenshot of it, but if you want any of these links to check anything out, it's all here at this tiny URL link. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is mind mapping, and this can be used in having students use a digital platform to make connections. I just want to make sure. Okay. And this is an example that my students did in it was the Spanish 412 class, which is advanced conversation and composition. And in this class, they read 4 different pieces of literature during the lesson. And then we didn't have a lot of class time for them to discuss them because we have other things going on. So what I had them do was look at rhetorical devices or literary techniques. And in 4 different pieces of literature, Los Gallinazos y Plumas, which is a short story, La Balada de los Dos Abuelos, which is a poem, No Oyes Ladrar los Perros, which is also a short story, and La Siesta del Martes, which is also a short story. They mapped out kind of the different types of rhetorical devices using this mind map. And it's really easy if you, let me see, give me just 1 second here to switch what I'm doing. Wanted to go to the website. That's not the one I want. This is what happens when you have too many things on your screen. There we go. All right. Essentially, you can just go to this website, create an account, and then there are different types of maps that you can use, but essentially you just click on Mind Map, create a shared board, and then it gives you this schema or this template, and you can create different types of connections. So students can use it to analyze literature. They could also use it to make connections if they're looking at specific topics within a piece of literature. I gave them a variety of different things to look at. So some groups were looking at characters and mapping out characters. Some were looking at representations of time. Some were looking at geographical kind of intersections with the literature. So you can make lots of different connections within that tool. And they're able to not just put in text, but one thing that I thought was kind of fun is they put in little emojis or little icons. And then they also, this kind of cracked me up, this has a train in it. So they drew a train with their tool there. All right. You can also do geographical mapping, and one tool that I particularly liked, this was for my introduction to Hispanic literature class. They, as a class, created a Google map collectively, and they mapped all of the different authors that we read, which in that course, we read a ton of different authors. So it was kind of hard to keep track of everyone. And this helped them to understand where the different authors were from and how that affected their different respective pieces of literature. So it was another kind of level of understanding, and it allowed them to make connections with like the literary movements that we talked about and the different generations of authors and how historical events in those specific places affected what they were reading. So you can make pretty easy Google Maps by just dropping a pin, and you can put images and also text in it. Another tool that I like is called Night Lab. It's very user-friendly, or Night Lab Story Maps, excuse me. This comes out of Northwestern University. And this is an example that I made to map out the life of an author and ambassador from Spain, Isabel Oyarzabal Smith, who is part of the generation of 1927. And you can use it to map authors' lives or characters' lives or whatever, or I also have included on the symbol, I did a map of the protagonist in a novel, the novel Dimi Kim Soy, where she travels all over the globe as a spy, as an international spy. And it, in instances like that, when you're reading literature, the students can then kind of geolocate where those characters are and make connections in that way. So essentially, we're just trying to delve a little bit deeper beyond the surface of summarizing text or looking at a plot line and things like that. And then this was also a project, you can take a look at it here, of a timeline that my Introduction to Hispanic Literature class created. And they mapped out the different time periods, different authors. I find it here. You can see it's also from Night Lab from Northwestern, and it's a really fairly user-friendly tool. I'm kind of a novice at things, so if I say they're user-friendly, I think you can probably believe me, I hope. So they have here different kingdoms within Spain and different events like the Protestant Reformation, but then they also mapped out time periods of authors, or for example, this is a sonnet written by Garcilaso de la Vega in 1533. So that's another way that you can kind of show another intersection with the literature. I apologize for jumping back and forth all over the place. Another type of analysis that you can use is if you want to look for topics or look for lexical items. And one tool that you can use is to go to the Word Tree Creator by Jason Davies. And essentially you just dump in a text, you copy and paste it, and it will create a word tree for you. And
Ew, what the fuck was that?
okay, I think.
Sorry about that, Aaron. Did we remove that person?
Yes.
I
Okay.
think Hillary
Sorry about
did,
that,
yeah.
Aaron.
Oh, no, that's okay. All right, let me go back here. All right, so I go to the word tree here. You can paste text in here and generate a word tree.
Shut up, fucking woman. Shut up, woman. I hate woman.
Aaron, can you give us 1 second to remove that person too?
Yep, you bet.
Hillary, can you give us a heads up when we can begin again, please?
Yes, just 1 second.
I'm locking the meeting too so that other people can't join. I'm sorry about that for folks who are joining in late, but yeah, we just prefer to not have people joining in and disrupting.
Are we good?
Okay, let's try continuing.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Sorry about that, Aaron.
That's all right. It just threw me off. Threw me off a little bit. So essentially, you can just go to that word tree generator, put in, this is a poem, and you can click on specific lexical items like maybe people. I want to look at the word people. That's not a good one. Trying to find one that has more connections now. And it'll show you the connections with that specific lexical item, and it can give you kind of the context of them. Perfect. You can do the same thing in Voyant tools, although I find that Voyant's word tree generator is not quite as interactive or quite as illuminating, but that also is a tool that you can use. And then you can also use the program AntConc, which you have to download onto your computer, but it will create a word list of lexical items, and then you can click on whatever individual lexical items you want to. This is from a short story called La Tísica by Javier de Viana, and it shows you the context of this word tísica, which is referring to the protagonist has tuberculosis. And it shows you the context of where all of those items occur. So if you wanted to look at descriptions, maybe in the story of that specific item, the fact that they call her La Tísica, and you want to show, kind of give data every instance where they're talking about that, this will provide you with that type of data. It also can provide you with, this is kind of a map of the text. So within this short story, these are kind of the different places throughout the development of the story where that specific lexical item occurs. And you can also, this is kind of an introduction to topic modeling if you're not familiar with it, but essentially what topic modeling does is create a bag of words or create a word list from a text that you have, and then it looks for connections within those texts and the computer creates what it thinks are topics within a given corpus. So these were different, now I can't remember where I got this from. I was doing all kinds of practice, but this is with a text, and it thinks that these different words work together within a corpus to create a topic. So this is something that can be used to compare with close reading that your students might be doing of text. So say they're reading a bunch of short stories by, I don't know, Edgar Allan Poe, and then you dump that into a Voyant and create a corpus and dump it into Voyant, and you look at their topics and see if there's any connection between the type of predictions that they might have made from their close reading and connecting it to the topics that the computer has generated. And sometimes the computer can be a little off because it's basing a lot of it on frequency. So that can start a discussion as to maybe why distant reading sometimes isn't the most accurate, why it should be combined with close reading so that you do make those connections and they make sense. Oops, you don't want to watch that. Let's go on to the next slide. Another type of computational analysis tool that I found recently that can be used without any coding is this website right here. And it's essentially using the Spacie wrapper in Python, and you put your text in here. This was an example text. You choose your language, which I was very excited to see that it has a variety of different languages. So if I had a Spanish text, I can use that. And then you can determine what different things you want it to identify. With named entity recognition, you're usually looking for like people, places, times. This is like nationality or religious or political organizations, geographical locations, products. There's all different kinds of things that you can have it show you. And this is really interesting because you can use that to then create data, kind of a data set, and discuss those different items. You can also take a look at it and see if it's labeled it wrong, because that does happen quite a bit, especially when you're using the different languages. But the nice thing about this tool is that you don't have to have that coding experience to do a named entity recognition process. Oh, Raisa, I think is who that was.
I'm going to suggest, I'm sorry that this is not the most convenient, but I'm going to suggest that we maybe close the meeting and return.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
To the same link.
To the same link, yeah.
Okay.
I just removed Resident, by the way.
I just, I think maybe we have been compromised this particular meeting. And so some people are looking like they're commenting, but it might not be them.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do that. I'll close the meeting and then reopen it. Erin, I'm so sorry about this.
It's okay.
Me too.
You don't have any control over it.
Folks, yeah, please log out of this Zoom and then log back in. We'll let people back in.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Hillary, I'm gonna turn off the ability so people can't unmute themselves or rename themselves for now.
How does, okay. So if people use the same link, is there going to be a problem again? Like, okay, for example, like Reza,
They're gonna come back with a
real
different name,
person.
Was a real person?
Yeah, I think so. Like a person named Reza introduced themselves, designer, photographer, connecting from Maryland, like in the chat. But then it looked like they were whatever, that they were unmuting themselves.
Mhm.
Have you seen anything like that happen before where like, and like then when I was chatting to you, it suddenly like switched to someone else?
Right, yeah. So I'm just turning off the ability for people to unmute themselves
Okay.
and to, so I think only the people who will be able to talk are co-hosts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've just seen spammers like draw on the
Mhm.
screen and stuff like, and I don't really know how to prevent that.
Yeah. That happened during one of our things too.
Yeah. In the past, have you like, you close the meeting and then tell people to log back in? Is like, how do you usually deal with it? Or how did you deal with it in the past?
In the past, we might have like just removed people. There was one that it got really bad and it was just the handful of people who, it was maybe just the presenter and maybe like 2 people who we recognized at the end.
Yeah.
Yasamin and Erin are back. I'm not really sure how to screen people in the waiting room right now, but Yasamin and Erin, just so y'all know, y'all can't talk right now. Sorry, let me make you co-host.
Should I let other people in, Sean?
Sure. I've turned off the ability for people to unmute themselves for now. So if they're disruptive, it'll be in the chat box. Hopefully that's the extent to which they can do it. But and then they can't unmute them, or they can't change their name. So we'll hopefully be able to find them and remove them faster.
Can't change their name?
Yeah, I turned that ability off too.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I think that was that. Yeah. That was the thing that was not allowing me to remove them, actually, was the fact I think they were changing names.
I'm really sorry. You're like, yeah, I feel really bad.
We tried to prevent this.
Okay, well, we have an audience now, and people can't unmute themselves, Erin. So I'll ask people to ask questions in the chat if they want, and we'll moderate that way. And we'll remove folks if we see them being disruptive. Really sorry.
It's okay. All right, I'm gonna put that back in the chat box just in case anybody didn't have it. All right.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not sure where we cut off the time just now. I had my timer running, but please take all the time you need. We'll go until.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go and we'll take the time you need for your presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
What did I do? Hold on just a second. My Zoom just disappeared. That's not what I want. Okay, so I need to share my screen. All right. Okay, so I was talking about named entity recognition, and I think I was kind of done with that. All right. But I didn't want to show you that. I'm pretty much done. So essentially with all of these different tools, and at the end, if you have questions about any of the different tools that I talked about, because it was very brief and we had interruptions, just feel free to ask me. Also, I included my email on the last slide. So if you want to get together and talk about any of them, I'd be happy to do that. But essentially, using these digital tools allows students to look at topics in different ways. It's innovative and it helps them to see lots of different intersections and different how what they're studying intersects with all kinds of different curricular areas, which is wonderful. And it also encourages critical thinking skills because they're diving a little bit more deeply into the content that they're learning. It deepens their understanding. My students that were in my Intro to Hispanic Literature class, we talked, there were 3 students that presented their timeline and map at a digital humanities showcase last semester. And we talked a lot about how it was helpful to them to be able to kind of keep everything in line and understand where the different authors were from and what time periods they were writing in and how those different intersections are important and how they influence what the authors are writing. And they also were taking other classes in literature and culture after they took the Intro to Hispanic Literature course. And they were able to take those maps and timelines and use them and add to them later on. So I did feel like that was a beneficial project. It was very collaborative and it allowed them to create something that they could use in the future. It encourages higher levels of cognition because we're taking the students from just recall to creating, analyzing, and evaluating. It engages them, encourages collaboration. Like I said, it's interdisciplinary. And then all students nowadays need presentational skills. And so it provides an opportunity for them to learn different types of visualizations. This is specifically text, but it's a type of visualization that they can use and presentational skills. So that's kind of me wrapping up. And if you do have any questions, feel free to email me and then we'll have the question part at the end. So thanks everybody for your attention.
Thank you so much, Erin. Yes, so yeah, if you have any questions for Erin, please feel free to drop those questions in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on them. And after Yasamin's presentation, we'll have some time for Q&A and discussion. Our next presenter is Yasamin Rizai. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Yasamin. Yasamin is a social media scholar, actor, and Instagram micro-influencer based in Miami, blogging about language and culture mostly for Persian speakers. Working at the intersection of new media studies and performance studies, and as a former engineer, her research is focused on social media, #MeToo, and Insta poetry by employing digital humanities tools. She is the co-founder of instasociety.org, an open access resource exploring how social media is changing popular culture. She is a teaching assistant at University of Miami, teaching French, Italian, and Persian language, and currently works at the Center for Humanities in the University of Miami as a UGRO Fellow. Thank you so much, Yasamin.
Sorry, I just couldn't unmute myself. Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you, Erin, for your wonderful work as a French, instructor. I'll definitely have to employ your methods. That were just like wonderful. Yeah, you'll be my email. You'll see my emails in your inbox. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, folks, and just please let me know if you can see my screen. Perfect. Okay. So here's a work in progress, and I'm so happy that my colleague is here in the audience too. It's a collaborative project between University of Miami and University of Maryland with my colleague, Dr. Mehdi Saad Pana. And for everybody, this is Yasamin, a PhD candidate at University of Miami. And so we are, as also Sean said, my research is focused where performance studies and new media studies meet. And I'm very glad to give you a brief report about what we've been doing in the past months with my colleagues Mehdi. So we hope that our study will contribute to a better understanding of Persian Twitter sphere and the current culture and discourses around sexual harassment, rape, and feminist movements in today's Iran. So Me Too was initially born in line to encourage women to speak out about the sexual assault, condemning sexual abuse and sexual harassment in this social movement native to the digital world and social media platforms. Social media users publicize allegations of sex crimes, mostly toward people who benefit from certain social, class, racial, gender, or political power in relation to others. In relation to others who mostly are identified to be on the marginalized side of power dynamics in society. So Me Too in Iran, among Persian-speaking users on Twitter or other social media platforms, is still a relatively young digital movement. Launched and appeared in August 2020 for the first time, this young and rapidly growing social media-born movement calls for urgent attention from cultural critics and scholars in new media and humanities who work in Iran and Iranian culture. In this work in progress, we gather and collect tweets containing hashtag #MeTooIran by employing the Tweepy library in Python. By applying topic modeling methodology, a contextual pattern for creating themed categories was found. Sentiment analysis and topic dispersion will also give many other scholars and us a better statistical picture of the reality of topic distribution, the user's approach to this activism, and the dominantly used vocabulary by Iranian users about sexual assault. You might ask why studying hashtag #MeToo matters. I think it matters because the culture around sexual assault still matters, because women's rights matters, because power dynamics matters in discussing sexual harassment. Also, as an online hashtag activism, the new field of media or social media studies in today's world, this interdisciplinary approach is needed to understand digital activism because it has such a pivotal role. It needs to be studies in relation of law, society, online platforms, and platformization, democracy of them, and platform culture, which is an inseparable part of our today's culture now. It's also necessary to study that for understanding the contemporary and future culture. We need to analyze and have an interdisciplinary approaches to social movements on social media in general, and various cultural productions on it. Also, if in the past we had people going on the street and asking for the social demands in form of protests on the street, now, especially after Black Lives Matter and also after pandemic, we see that a lot of this sort of social demands are being practiced virtually online on social media. So if social media is a part of culture, performing on it matters, then the virtual embodiment of performance matters. The impact users have on social media, the influence of companies and how platforms shape the culture and users' behaviors and vice versa, and also the policies and economics behind it, they all matters. And the reason we wanted to study on, also it's important to have digital humanities approach to the narratives, to have some sort of numerical approach to it. And you might also wonder why we picked Iran. I think one of the main reasons is that it's a new movement and it's shaping the contemporary culture right now as if we're speaking. The other reason is that hashtag #MeToo in English speaking area has been studied by many scholars by now, but the relevant Persian content on Twitter seems to be still a bit understudied. It's also complicated to talk about sex as a cultural taboo and reporting it in a country with certain traditional and socio-political background like Iran. By this work, we specifically want to know, and I'm sorry for the noise, what are the words and meanings created by the public in the discourse of feminism during the hashtag #MeTooIran movement? What patterns emerge among hashtags in the hashtag #MeToo movement? So for doing that, we started scraping the tweets like all the other similar research projects. And in scraping the tweets from this movement, we had one major problem. There are no official SMO or social movement organization registered in Iran that are working on Twitter on this. It can be said that unlike the English material on the movement in North America, which was a top button or a collective movement in which hashtags were offered and unified like regularly by some certain SMOs and were then actively used by users. In Iran's case, it's actually the other way around. This movement was mostly connective, meaning from bottom to top. So users and individuals in Twitter started actually creating it and leading it. This is why not all the materials in hashtag MeToo in Iran can be found on the same label, meaning the same hashtag. There are many side movements that can fall into the category of hashtag MeToo, and they're actually vital parts of this movement. Hashtags such as Asarbazi Begu, meaning tell me about your military service, in which male users were talking about the sexual abuse they had when they were doing their compulsory military service in Iran, or Chara gozarish nadadam, hashtag Chara gozarish nadadam, meaning why I didn't report. Therefore, gathering hashtags such as Manham, which is the translated term of MeToo in Persian, did not necessarily lead us to relevant content. One account handled MeToo Iran was identified as an account that has been actively labeling the relevant content by hashtag MeToo Iran and retweeting the narratives. This account now receives the narratives and shares them on large scale. Its major activity is on Instagram by having around 90K followers at the moment. Although incomplete, we decided to focus on hashtag MeToo Iran in form of Latin alphabets that it has, introduced by this account, and start by scraping these tweets only. We preferred not to do topic modeling as we had about 2,000 tweets from August 22 until February 2022. Therefore, because in topic modeling, like you expect to have more data. Therefore, we started a close reading procedure to detect some thematized categories. We acknowledge that many other ways of categorizing the data are possible, and hereby we suggest categories below after going through the tweets containing the various forms of hashtag MeToo Iran as the following patterns appeared. The categories are broad, and the main aim was for them not to overlap. It's important to highlight that these tweets led us to subjective creation of these categories as if this pattern was emerged among them. So actually what we did was to close reading of around 1,000 tweets and try to decide which belongs to which categories. It was not an easy task to do, not because it was just close reading, because we had to go through some materials that were direct narratives about rape and sexual assault. So these are the 5 categories that we came up with. The first one is support. Any content that amplifies the voice is going to be under the support. Number 2 is victim blaming. Any sort of blaming or teasing the contents of sexual assault or narratives or expressing strong disbelief in the narratives are counted in this category. Number 3 was educational or instructive content. Any educational content such as writing about historical roots of patriarchy, feminism, dynamics of power, and its relationship with sexual assault, the law and legal aspects of reporting sex crime in Iran or abroad are considered to be educational and instructive to the public and Twitter users. Number 4 were the narratives, the direct or indirect narratives of rape or sexual assault, sexual harassment. Number 5 was uncategorized. Anything that did not belong to the mentioned categories, we decide to label it as uncategorized. These are the numbers that we ended up with. The explored pattern, so as you see, I'm gonna like show you, okay, so we have a visualization here. So as you see, we have like around 1/4 of these tweets labeled as uncategorized, meaning that we were unable to categorize them. But if I remove that part and just have a look at the tweets that were actually find a way to the categories that we suggested, we see that 37.8% are supportive, 15% are victim blaming, which is a remarkable number. And then we have around 1/4 that are educational, and number 4, around, again, less than 1/4 are narratives of sexual assault. The explored pattern in contextual themes of tweets with MeToo Iran, which are mostly in the Persian language, demonstrates that the Twitter platform has been relatively hostile to this movement and survivor narratives of sexual assault in Iran. A prominent category of these tweets was of educational and instructive content for the public about how to speak about sexual assault and for the survivors about how to report them. A remarkable proportion of tweets contained victim blaming and expressed strong opposition against this feminist wave and social activism. Around 1/4 of these tweets, as I said, were not categorized. While focusing on category of narratives only, like getting only that 1/4 of tweets that were only narratives, we identified the top repeated words as you see in this table. Among them, sexual, narrative, rape, harassment, and assault were predictable to be on this table, as there are narratives of sexual assault. However, among the top repeated words, we found this. The word sokut, meaning silence, was among top repeated words in the narratives. It was repeatedly used by survivors in the narratives and on different contents. That might tell us something about the current culture around sexual assault in Iran. Eventually, these are some conclusions that I'm going to just skip over them. We can conclude that there is no registered official SMO for Me Too in Iran currently, and there are many side movements around narratives. However, handle me_2_Iran has labeled relevant tweets by an English hashtag called #MeTooIran. The word silence has been found to be the most repeated word among narratives and reports of sexual assaults, which can mean most of the survivors have mentioned this concept in some ways or another in their narratives. A list of occupations mentioned has been found, which shed light on the industries and working atmosphere most repeated while narrating a sexual assault. An example is that we had the word journalist repeated a lot during the narratives, which means the relationship between the abuser and the survivor was that the abuser, they both were journalists, or it happened in news agency. There are further questions for us and for other scholars who are interested in continuing this work. For example, we're working on more word proximity methods, such as what are the emotions discussed, the piece of clothing discussed, the body members mentioned in the narratives. More hashtags needs to be studied regardless of the SMO. What is the role of SMOs on Iranian social media? Has this activism been collectively or connectively moving forward? Can we use topic modeling in case we retrieve more tweets? If yes, how will the results be different or similar to ours? Did victim blaming tweets decrease in time or increase during this time? And how is the anti-feminist tweet sphere on Persian Twitter changing it, if it is? Our data, including the uncategorized tweets, around 25% of all tweets are available for public. It's encouraged for further research that these tweets be explored and studied, and other patterns or framing themes might be suggested and explored and found. Eventually, this study hopefully shed light on some cultural aspects of feminism, and it aims to explore some potential existing questions and lead to raising more. Existing questions such as what the critics to the sex crime allegations or this specific digital activism are in an online platform such as Twitter will be analyzed. This work aims to raise questions such as why and how the online platforms hosting this movement matter, what they added, or how they have contributed to activities and citizens from minoritized and often historically silenced backgrounds in discussing sexual abuse and power dynamics. I'm done, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. I'm going to spotlight both you and Erin so that folks can see you, and invite folks, if you have any questions for either Erin or Yasmin, to please drop them in the chat. And in the meantime, Erin, I had a quick question for you about the word cloud stuff that you mentioned. Could you kind of go back to your presentation and elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I realized that I skipped over that part. I got a little out of order. So you can use word clouds in a lot of different ways, and there are lots of, I included on that symbol page a lot of different word cloud generators. I usually use wordclouds.com. It's just my favorite go-to. But essentially what you can do is create a visualization that's based on frequency of words in a given corpus. And I've used it in, especially in conversation classes when we were looking at literature or looking at a specific text. I created a word cloud and I would put it up in my presentation, like up on the screen, and then have them discuss it and discuss those lexical items that show up more frequently or larger in the visualizations. Like here, this is from that same short story, La Tísica, and it generated a lot of conversation between my students. You can use it also to have them, they can create their own word clouds and then discuss things with other students. You can use it to summarize work. It creates a word list for you with the frequency. So that's a nice kind of point of departure if you want to go dive deeper and look at lexical items. And then one thing I used it for in my conversation and composition class this semester was to have the students look at their composition skills. And I had them, we did a prompt where they wrote for like 10 minutes in class in Spanish. And then I had them take that piece of text and I had them put it in a word cloud generator and had them look at word frequency. And they found that many times they were using like the word thing. They were using very vague terms. And we talked about word choice. This is an example right here of actually an essay that I wrote. And this is the word list that is generated from that. So they can then use that frequency. It's not lemmatized, so it's not 100% accurate. It is accurate, but it could be honed down a little bit more. Like if you had the word work and works, those should be delemmatized together if you were doing a computational analysis. But it gives you a point of departure, and it also, like I said, encourages group discussion. So that was the part about word clouds.
Thank you so much, Erin. Yes, I mean, there's two questions for you in the chat. I'm going to read them both off. The first question is from Andrea, and they said, I know you opted for a close reading route, but were there Persian-specific text mining tools available to you, or was that an obstacle? Additionally, do you think that there might be a correlation between using the Me Too flag in the first place with the thematic distribution of the course? I ask because I wonder how much the tag itself signals a greater awareness of what happened in the original Me Too movement and what that says about the participants of this conversation. Do you want to answer that one first, then I'll read the second one? Or...
Yeah, sure. That was such a good question. Like, I'm pretty sure Mehdi also agrees with me. So yeah, the language was in doing digital humanities or some sort of data work in Python and everything. Of course, language sometimes bothers because we're not working with English alphabets as ingredients, and that might like cause errors or stuff. But the methodology and algorithm is the same. It's just like haven't been worked out more, like as much as, you know, it has been worked out in English speaking material. So I don't think that was what the main problem for us to go with closed reading is that we only had 2,000 tweets that after cleaning the data and removing the duplicates, we had just like 800, 900 tweets. So that was actually the first and the main reason that we didn't go with other methods. But if we retrieve more data, definitely in future, we aim to try those too. And for the second part of the question, which is such a great question, of course, I think there is a correlation between using the Me Too tag in the first place with the thematic distribution. Like, as I said, those hashtags were not being assigned to tweets by users, but it was used on those tweets from an account that it labels itself as official Me Too movement account. So of course, when they were looking for materials, they might have them, like, you know, because when you assign a hashtag to content and the way you search for it, it will definitely affect the categories that we found. Maybe if we were not looking at with that method, we were not scraping methods with that method, things would have been different. This is my idea. Maybe my colleague has a different perspective on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasemin. I'm actually going to read the next two questions because they seem a little bit related. The question from Anahita asks, they say, Yasemin, awesome work and such a great topic. Have you investigated the tweets in terms of the abuser or perpetrator's status? for example, if they are family members, strangers, or famous scholars. And the second question is, from Aho, and they ask, have you seen similar trends following the hashtag on Instagram as on Twitter, or are there any discrepancies? And they say, thank you.
I'm going to start from the second question. We have not worked on Instagram, and my assumption is that Instagram atmosphere about hashtag #MeToo is quite wide and different compared to Twitter. So I have no say about Instagram and whatever that is going on about this movement on that platform. But as someone who worked on the material from Twitter, I can say that in response to the question that Anahita asked here, is that we quite have, so working on the category that was made of the tweets that were from narratives, there were some jobs mentioned. So we made to find some jobs and occupation. And we speculate that those jobs and occupation are actually demonstrating the relation of the abuser with the survivors. And among them, as I can remember, journalist and writer and artist were among the top. So this doesn't mean that all the sexual assault that were reported or happened in Iran was not from family members or strangers, but it shows that this hashtag, with the way we collect the tweets and scrape them, shows that that area and that occupations were among the abusers in our case study. I hope I answered your question, Anahita. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasemin. Aaron, I have a question for you. Unless other folks want to jump in, I don't want to take up all the space, but I know that you've taught both in the high school and undergraduate. I wanted to ask how you assessed the digital humanities or the digital humanities tools that you shared, and how you assess them in both like high school versus undergraduate spaces, and then also if you saw that the use of these tools kind of showed up over the course of a semester or something teaching with your students. Like how did that show up in terms of their own teaching and learning?
I was not familiar with digital humanities tools when I was teaching high school. I mean, there were some tools that maybe you could have categorized sort of that way, but that really wasn't part of my knowledge at the time. What do you mean by, I'm kind of confused about your question. What do you mean by like, how did they show up? Or that second part of your question, could you clarify?
Yeah, I'm curious if how you assess the impact of using these tools in terms of how the students are receiving the lessons that you're planning.
Yeah, I think in the future, I didn't really have the autonomy to do this, but I think in the future, I would have them write essays where they're using then analysis that they use the tools for to do some in their research. That wasn't necessarily something that was designed for the courses that I was teaching, so I didn't really have the ability to do that. But I think that would demonstrate, I think it would be demonstrative of whether or not it is helping them to dig deeper and to understand and analyze better or not. At this point, it was kind of more surface, the work that I've done, but I tried to get feedback from the students. It was overall, it was seen as a good thing, and they seemed to think that it helped them understand better. I would have to probably do some sort of study, I would think, and look at it in more depth, but they definitely are. I can see a definite correlation between them creating and them thinking more, what's the word I want? They're being more deliberate about the way that they're thinking about the text rather than just reading them, summarizing them, saying like, these are the characters, this is what happens. We were able in the course that I just taught to have conversations about topics that had to do with that literature, and they were able to make connections. So it's a really good question. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Erin. I think we have maybe time for one more question. It looks like Miriam Miriam is asking, oh, they said, thanks for the great presentations and questions for Yasamin. Very interesting analysis. I'm curious about the uncategorized. What were some of the examples of tweets coded under this?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Ma'am. For the tweets that were labeled under uncategorized were specifically the ones that we couldn't assign it to the first 4 top categories, which means support, educational, victim blaming, and narratives. A lot of them were like questioning the way that these narratives are being validated, if these narratives are valid. Like some of them, to mine first, they were like a little bit close to victim blaming, but they actually were not. So I mean, I had a lot of struggles labeling tweets into uncategorized. So whatever that was not directly going to one of those categories, I would just like put it aside as uncategorized. That's why in the further questions for further scholars, I was like actually bring it up that it would be interesting and actually needed for people to go over those 25% of tweets that we labeled as uncategorized. I hope I answered your question, and thank you.
Thank you both, Erin and Yasamin, for your wonderful presentations today. I guess that's the end of our questions. I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is our last Digital Fridays of the semester. So for folks who are concluding their time as HASTAC Scholars, congratulations on that. For folks who are part of the cohort that was accepted this year, we'll continue our programming in the fall. Folks may know that HASTAC is currently migrating to a different web server. So there is a slight pause on our programming in this time as we're migrating all the information from our old website and database into the new server. But there's going to be opportunities for HASTAC Scholars to do things like beta test the new site if folks are interested in anything like that. And then I know that Hillary has been leading a really great collaborative book discussion. I'm not sure if you want to say anything about that, Hillary, or I can just say that it's happening.
Yep, it's happening. Folks are working on their reviews of a book called Design Justice, and that should be going up by mid-May. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
And if you are not active HASTAC Scholar or are interested in receiving more information, I'm putting our email address in the chat box. You can contact Hillary and I directly through that email address. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us on this Friday afternoon. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Hillary. That was so stressful. You're on mute, but.
Oh my goodness. What a, ugh. I think I don't know what best practices are. Somehow that's all kind of gone out the window. I think I read something months ago, but I think that was a good way to go, was just to have people readmit people. Yeah.
I wonder to what degree this was coordinated by the person. I don't know.
I know. Oh my God. I was thinking the same thing. I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't know. I wonder if because we had a lot of RSVPs,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if like Zoom bombers were RSVPing. Does that happen?
I don't know. Maybe they RSVP'd, or maybe one person did and just sent the Zoom info to somebody else. We did this 2-step process of getting the Zoom link to try to avoid this.
Yeah. But
yeah, that's why I want it feels to me like someone who is on the HASTAC mailing list who is I feel like you have to.
Did you post it on haystack.org?
No.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, and the last time, the last time that we were Zoom bomb like this in a Digital Friday, it was someone who was presenting on, I forget the exact topic, but it was like on like LGBTQ gaming culture. And it just feels like a lot of these like horrible attacks are coming like when we're presenting things that are like,
Relevant to
yeah,
like presenting on things that these people hate.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because the content of this was like, I hate women. I mean, yeah, I don't know how they would have gotten access to this.
Right. And the particular disruptions that I heard was someone say like B, shut the F up, and someone write penis in the chat, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it wasn't like racial, which I've also heard.
yeah. Okay. I
But-
feel really bad for Aaron in particular because he kept on having
Yeah.
their presentation.
Yeah.
I told them that we're going to do our best to try to edit all that stuff out, but I don't know what Chris's capacity is to do that.
I mean, I think we're just gonna have to edit out probably the entire sections, or maybe just mute sections.
Yeah. I wonder if they would be open to maybe like I could just invite them to just present on Zoom again and record it, and we can like edit that part in or something like that,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, you could offer that.
yeah. I'll send them an email and see what they think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron might be open to that.
Yeah.
It's like an annoying extra step, but maybe not that annoying if like Aaron really wants to have her full presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your help. I feel like it would have gone horribly if you weren't.
I think, yeah. Oh my God. I know like this is why you can't just like host these by yourself. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish I had. I think the main thing that made it so that we had to like shut the whole thing down was the fact that people could change their names. Because I think people were changing their names to like the names of actual participants.
Yeah.
And so like Reza, I think Reza was an actual person.
Oh, and then I kicked them out because someone named Reza said something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, yeah, I think that should definitely be for the future. No name changing allowed.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe we just like also need to keep people muted.
Yeah.
And have people raise their hands.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. I hope you have a good rest of your day and weekend.
Thank you. And I just wanted to really quickly tell you that I saw Tenjo yesterday at that conference that the CPCP did.
Okay.
And he told me that he's been meeting with you to talk about your proposals. And he just was like so appreciative. He's just like, I love Sean. Like he has helped me so much. Like so appreciative.
That's really
and
sweet.
it was very sweet. We had like a little like Sean like appreciation fest. It was really sweet. So just
That's
wanted
really
to let
sweet.
you know.
I feel the same about Tenjo. He has also been very helpful and supportive and just really great.
He's such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Just like huge sweetheart.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you go now.
Have a good rest.
You have a great weekend too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.